Okay, so this person, Dr. Mary, is doing cancer research, and they're using all these mice and injecting them with monkey viruses that cause cancer in the mice. And it's this total like.
So the link I got was a book about sailing.
Okay. Monkey cancer?
Don't buy that book. Listen to the one that I sent you.
I listened to the intro. I was like, I'm not paying $15 for this.
That's why you're like, what am I supposed to be listening to here? So that makes sense now.
You ever get the feeling that everything in America is completely fucked up? You know that feeling that the whole country is like 1 inch away from saying, that's it, forget it. Let's see.
Hey, twist around. Now look, here's a house full of bees. You think the honey badger cares? It doesn't give a shit.
Listen, let's get one thing straight.
Price is right.
Guns don't kill people. I do.
Little street punk to kick things off.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Dropkick Murphys.
Yep.
Did you think so?
Yes.
Yep. Like, yep, you're right.
Yes, that was true. That
Correct.
was the Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah. Very distinct sound, I would say.
Yeah. I love the Dropkick Murphys.
I never got into them, but
toured with them.
Oh,
if I
really?
remember correctly, yeah.
In what band?
Just a band I used to be in.
One day you're going to slip up and name the bands that you were in.
The Wallflowers. Shit. God, did it.
Son of a bitch.
I love the Dropkick Murphys because they kind of branch out. They do a lot of different stuff. Mm-hmm. But the straight up street punk stuff kind of missed me, or I missed it because it's such a, I don't want to say derivative, but it's kind of a non-dynamic thing. So, you don't need 500 street punk bands. You only need like 6. The ones that are really good at it are awesome at it. Like Dropkick Murphys, for example.
Totally.
Or the Street Dogs. But
I get the feeling those guys really like to fight.
They are very tough dudes.
Are they?
Yes, and very nice dudes. But
because I saw a picture of them.
You wouldn't want to tangle with them in a fight.
On what do you call it? What's that app that we use? Spotify. Mm-hmm. And they don't look like all that tough.
They are.
Because look at this picture of them here. Just a bunch of regular dudes. Right? I mean, they're older in this picture.
I wouldn't want to tangle with that group.
Well, this is why I played this song, because that song is called Fight Starter Karaoke. Mm-hmm. And the chorus, he says, it doesn't take a big man to knock somebody down, just a little bit of courage to lift them off the ground. And we were just talking about your Muay Thai training yesterday, and I watched this video from Sensei Seth, which is one of Junior's favorite YouTube channels. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a chubby white dude in very good shape, but just that big kind of body that people have that, like, no matter what that guy did, he would never be shredded. He had this video, he was walking around asking people like that, do you think that you can fight? Like if you got...
Oh, I think I've seen this.
And there is this thing, and I'm a perfect example of it, that before I learned just a little bit of martial arts, I had way more confidence in my ability to fight than my first day of jiu-jitsu. It was like, oh, I don't know anything about fighting.
Dude, this is so weird because I was thinking about this yesterday because my hands is fucked up.
Yeah.
Right? So I can't even wear a glove on it. And I was just kicking the bag over and over and over. It's kind of the only thing I could do.
Right.
And I was thinking back to that you know, as your standard American man, you're like, well, I mean, I've been in my fair share of street fights when I was younger. I was like, well, it's not foreign territory. I could probably handle myself. And then you train for like a month, and there's this like glory period where you're like, I could beat anyone in a fight. And then month 2, you're like, I just don't know anything. And it's like your level of confidence. You're like, I just don't. I know. I got to learn more.
Dude, for me, it was the first day.
Yeah.
I was like, because there were dudes in there who looked kind of out of shape and maybe a little overweight, and they were just killers. I was like, wow, like you just have no idea who does know how to fight and who doesn't. You cannot judge someone based on their looks as to whether or not they know anything about martial arts. And then you'll see like, did you guys look at that?
If only we had like a black belt here, we could bounce this stuff off of instead of us fucking talking out of our asses.
Did you see did you look at the Instagram link that I sent you guys of the soccer dudes getting in a fight?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Great.
I don't have it pulled up, but it was just like,
Jake, what do you got?
I didn't watch to the end. Who won that?
Nobody.
The fans?
We all lost.
Yeah, the fans.
I mean, you never see a fight actually break out with striking in soccer,
right,
or basketball anymore, for that matter, or football. You only see it in hockey,
right?
Actually, and professional lacrosse.
Yes,
and it's so rad because those fights in lacrosse, especially, like they go until someone goes to the ground. They just wail on each other, and then they get up and like hug it out.
Yeah,
they're like, great fight. Like it's just part of the sport. It's so rad.
Right.
But those other sports, like you'll never see anyone go to blows. And this Instagram video was actually people trying to hit each other, and it was just like the saddest thing.
It was like a chick fight.
It was like a chick fight.
I don't want to say that because there's girls in our gym that will fuck your world up.
Totally.
Yeah.
And if any of them were in that altercation, that would have ended. I mean, it's just like they're just like these haymaker like slaps. Like
that's why I always like I don't watch the UFC. I just can't stand the professional wrestling aspect of it. But that's why I love like the Muay Thai fights, which I've been watching like every night. Been watching like a ton of Rod Tang fights. Is whenever the dude lands something or like gets some like crazy head kick, the other dude like gives him the little head nod, like, hey, nice shot there.
Yeah.
And they're always super respectful. They always bow to each other after the fights. I don't know. That's why I've always liked Muay Thai better than the UFC.
They ruin it with the pageantry. It's kind of like downgraded version of what that Tyson Jake Paul thing was. That was
yes.
That was intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think
I found it.
People that tune in for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The music is so perfect.
So this is drunken style. They're both masters, but
dude, that more looks like they're dancing than fighting.
Totally. That music is so good. It is almost like synchronized misses.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So stalling. Dude, have you seen the show Landman with Billy Bob Thornton?
Mm-mm.
It's, I think Taylor Sheridan, is that the guy's name that did Yellowstone?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That show I love.
Dude, Landman is fucking fantastic.
What is it?
It's about the oil fields in Texas.
Oh, really?
Like Midland, Odessa area. And the main character, Billy Bob Thornton's character, is basically just kind of like the guy that tries to keep the wheels falling off of the whole operation. And they're dealing with cartels stealing their trucks and their airplanes, and accidents happening and lawsuits and, you know, just the day-to-day kind of shit that happens with all the workers that live kind of on the oil fields.
I have to check it out.
It's fucking badass. I have one.
I get into like one TV show a year, if that. And Yellowstone, we are rewatching it actually right now.
this will scratch that itch for you.
Okay.
For sure. I did have one critique of it. And Gertrude pointed out a critique that our favorite neighborhood wingnut posted on Facebook about it, that just pissed everybody off, but it was about clean energy. It was just like, come on, dude. So fucking boring. Like, we're watching a show here. We're not. So my nitpicking.
I'm increasingly coming to terms that there is a certain percentage of people around me that are incapable of experiencing happiness.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, find something that everyone else likes and figure out a way to pull it down.
If only briefly, just for 4 hours, check out.
So that's what I'm about to do here.
Right here, guys.
And this is your...
We got that guy. I got a guy for that. So,
and it's kind of your fault. Because I'm a child of divorce and nothing's my fault. Is because you made me go on Twitter to promote the podcast.
I made you?
Yes. And I just experience, it's just such a cesspool.
Yeah.
People are just upset and like posting multiple times a day. They never stop.
Yeah.
Dude, the latest thing on, were you going to say something? Interrupting you?
I was going to say something about Landman, but we'll get back to it. Well, just so you know, like what I did trick you into doing by going back on Twitter was increasing our listenership, which when we get to 10,000 listeners, you'll be running for office. You'll be running for governor of California.
So excited.
So I want to just give a shout out to all the new listeners. Tell your friends. Let's get Matt into what is it? The White House? What is let's get him into Sacramento.
Yes.
Does it have a name? The place where the governor lives?
Capitol.
The governor's mansion?
Something like that.
Yeah.
The French Laundry. Something along those lines.
There's this scene in Landman where Billy Bob Thornton kind of runs into this fiery situation to shut off a gas valve, and he has a pipe wrench, like a monkey wrench, right? And he puts it on the valve and he's hitting it with a hammer to get it unstuck to close the valve, and he has the fucking wrench on backwards. And it's just like, fuck, dude, like, you obviously, like, it takes you out of it because you're like, okay, you're an actor. You've never had to use a wrench in your life, or else you would have looked at it and be like, this doesn't make sense. We should flip the wrench over here, right? And it's just this awesome example of a show that I like, and is, it's just gritty, and it's just the way Yellowstone was. It's just kind of real.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, they're actors.
Yeah.
They're faking it. It's all fake. Like, here's this fucking wrench upside down. Like, come on.
This is why I can't watch shows. It's like, none of this is real.
You can't watch shows that have any sort of trades.
No, at least we can't. It's the same reason I can't go to a restaurant, because I'm always like staring over my wife's shoulder with my thumb next to the window. Like, who the fuck's at that window?
Let's look at the flashing. Pull the trim off real quick.
Herman, how you doing?
Fine. Thank you. And
Good.
you?
So I've been brushing up on my Spanish. You can speak Spanish, right?
More or less.
Yeah. I had like surf trip Spanish.
Right.
So I can get by, find out where the beach was, where to eat, where the bathroom was, things like that. But I haven't done that for 4 or 5 years. So it's been a while.
Did you have something you wanted to say in Spanish?
Well, I've been quizzing myself.
Okay.
Herman, your Spanish is pretty good, yeah?
He's getting there.
So if we saw us in Mexico and we saw a dog, that'd be what?
Un perro.
Yeah, right. Car would be...
El carro.
Okay. I had coche, so I had that wrong.
Es
Okay.
lo mismo, sí.
Either or? Okay. Man.
Es hombre.
Hombre. Okay. All right. Doing good so far. Woman would be...
Mujer.
Was it?
Mujer.
Okay. So I don't know if you have this in Mexico, but U.S. we have people that identify as non-binary.
We were just fucking talking about this last night at the Christmas parade.
Which in Spanish would be, if I saw someone who identified as non-binary, would be what?
Sí, no binario.
Okay.
Sí.
So it ends with an O, which means...
Masculine.
Okay. What if it was a woman that was non-binary?
Bueno, dirían no binaria.
Interesting.
Wow.
Thank you.
Sí.
Dude,
I apparently have some work to do.
well done. That's fucking crazy, dude. You just cracked open the whole thing right there. Fun fact, the first person who declared trans identity and got their legal papers changed to make them from a man to a woman was in Germán's hometown, Colima.
Really?
Yes.
First person ever
In Mexico to get to legally change.
in Mexico. Got it.
Yeah.
I just
Do you want to see a picture?
no.
Nope.
Okay.
So if you want to follow us on Twitter, our Twitter handle is
Liberty up a tree.
which we are getting some traction finally.
Let's get Matt into Sacramento.
It is, I feel like filthy being on there.
Yes, terrible.
And I don't know what's different about, because we're on the same account, right? Because it's for the podcast. I don't know what's different about my algorithm.
Yeah.
But mine is just completely stacked with Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
And there's like no conversation you can have.
Right.
Because they're still saying like, he's literally Hitler, like in all caps. You're just going like, what the, like, what do you say?
You're going to argue with that? No, he isn't. Like, well, technically, if you look at what Hitler did, it's like, shut up. It's just like, why is most of Twitter just the most boring conversations ever?
It is. I'm convinced, I mean, a certain percentage of it has to be just complete bots. Because some of the stuff you see on there, you're like, I don't think any rational human being would put that on the internet.
Zogbots.
Zogbots? Think so?
I think human beings are the bots in a lot of cases. You know, like they don't have the mental agility to go on Twitter and have a nuanced idea, like something interesting to say. They just like, got to post something. There's Trump is Hitler again. Almost
My entire timeline was this insane, passionate debate. It's, I think, when people, the TDS is at such a level that they go like, whatever Orange Man says, like, I'm going to go screaming into the streets about the other thing. And yesterday it was daylight savings time.
No.
Yes.
Yesterday?
Apparently Trump said something about daylight savings time.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. About like ending it, or I don't even know who's on what side or whatever.
Right.
And these people, what is it?
No, I don't know, but like he would have definitely. I mean, he won the election, but if he'd come out anti daylight savings time before the election, like,
Oh, yeah.
they probably wouldn't even have bothered to have it.
Yeah.
Right.
And now you have people like posting multiple times a day, and it gets increasingly like deranged, like unhinged, where it's like by 5 o'clock, they're like, you know, with Christ at my side, I will go walking through the fires of hell to keep the current model of daylight savings time in place. So help me God. It's the kind of thing, like, if I would have saw like one of my friends post that, I'd be like, hey, God, everything okay at home, dude?
Totally.
You okay, man? Like,
It makes you wonder.
is this the hill you want to die on?
Trump is one of the most intelligent internet trolls of all time.
Yeah.
Like, how much does he use that to his advantage? Where he's like, I know what I'll do. Like, they're against. I'll say I'm for this one thing that I'm not actually for, and just get everyone to kind of.
He's like
go to my side.
He's like someone throwing the Mento in the Coke. He's like, whoop.
Yeah.
Just sit back and watch the show. Like, just watch people just become completely unmoored from reality.
I'd like to put out my idea for daylight savings time.
I got one too.
Okay. I'd say we adjust it by a half hour, split the difference, and just leave it there.
That was my
forever.
idea.
Oh,
but not
beautiful.
only that, what a rad America First middle finger to the world. Like, all right, we're setting everything ahead by 30 minutes. Every airline, every trading platform, every financial institution, you guys figure it out.
Yeah. Adjust or die.
And also, while we're feeling froggy, every sport where you don't use your hands, now illegal by international law. You guys figure it out.
Oh, man. Did you see this beautiful clip of Pocahontas talking about RFK Jr.?
I'm more Native American than her. I got my 23andMe back.
Are you?
Mm-hmm. That's where I got my blonde hair and blue eyes.
That makes a lot of sense. And your intolerance of alcohol.
Say goodbye to your smile and say hello to polio. You know, I would laugh if it weren't so scary.
Holiday message.
Donald Trump just picked RFK Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. This is a man who wants to stop kids from getting their polio and measles shots. He's actually welcoming a return to polio, a disease we nearly eradicated. But it doesn't stop there. RFK Jr. also doesn't believe fluoride should be in your water. And that's what keeps your teeth from rotting. You can't make this stuff up.
You can't make this stuff up.
I'm going to have me a beer.
Do we still have that button on the sound?
No, I don't think so. Hey, is RFK... He's just stopping the mandates. He's not stopping people from getting the polio vaccine if they want, right?
I don't think he
wrong?
said anything of what he's actually going to do.
Huh.
I know that he is suspicious of vaccines beyond, I think he said a lot of times, like the vaccines that he got when he was a kid are fine, but all these other like 100 vaccines that they've come out with now are problematic, like the chickenpox vaccine and the shingles vaccine. And they're problematic for good reasons, like having the chickenpox virus in our community and being passed around all the time is better for us than trying to eliminate it with the vaccine. Because
when I was a kid, I'm probably showing my age here, but they actually had chickenpox parties.
Yeah.
If a kid had chickenpox, they put them together with the other kids, so they all got it early.
I am looking for one.
Because I knew someone who had chickenpox when they were like 20.
Yeah.
And it's brutal if you get it when
I know.
older. Yeah.
I posted on Nextdoor that I was looking for one recently.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, that was a little controversial, I guess, to say the least. Did you know,
dude? You got to get back on Nextdoor. That was the best.
You know what?
That was the best comedy.
Since you're on Twitter,
okay,
fair enough. Yes,
okay,
I'm there.
You.
Okay, you're welcome.
About time.
Did you know that Kamala Harris, after losing the election badly,
that's what people on Twitter are saying. They're saying they're doing a recount.
Election deniers on Twitter. Wow, who'd have thought?
Flip flop.
She's gone on a stand-up comedy tour.
I think she's always been on one. She just didn't know she was on one.
Well, she's embracing it. All right, here's some of her chops for you.
And I give you permission that if you are going to someone's house who doesn't know how to cook, bring
Crushing.
your own dish.
Well, she thought it was hilarious.
No regrets.
She's killing.
Oh, wow.
People were dying laughing at that joke.
She was.
Okay, it gets better. I got one more clip for you. This one actually made me laugh. This is from Comedy Central. I don't know if this is the Daily Show. I think it is. Which hasn't been very funny.
Who runs
recently.
the Daily Show now?
I don't know.
Who's the host?
So I actually watched a little bit of this recently, and they had that Trevor Noah guy for a while, but before that it was Jon Stewart, right? But
Jon Stewart was hilarious.
Most recently,
He came back, right?
yeah. So I watched a couple episodes that are really recent, just to kind of see what I'm like, what's the lefty mindset on these things?
Doing research for the pod.
Yeah, exactly.
Appreciate
it. But they seem to have a rotating host thing going on. So it'll be
Jon Stewart does it like once a week or something like that.
I don't know how often the show even airs, but there wasn't the same
I think
guy.
it's daily.
The Daily Show.
Good name.
Huh.
All right, this is a dude named Costa.
Let's kick things off with Time Magazine. Every December, they reveal their Person of the Year.
By the way, I was wrong by telling you who...
sorry, cut out for a second. What was that last thing you said?
I was wrong. I repeat, I was wrong. I repeated something that my mother-in-law told me, that Caitlin Clark had won Person of the Year, Time Magazine.
Yeah, you texted that to me. I'm like, I never heard about that.
Which I thought was kind of crazy, like, because very controversial Caitlin Clark is.
Is she?
Just because, well, she's white, and she plays in a sport in basketball that's predominantly black, and she's like the best player in the whole league, and they fucking hate her for that.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, so her being Person of the Year would have been interesting. But anyways, not her, turns out.
So that people can remember that Time Magazine still exists. Print media is dying, you know? Not like cable. We're doing great.
Solid joke. Funny.
So this morning, the editor of Time Magazine came on TV to reveal who this year's person was, even though the moment you see the editor's face, you know right away it's Donald Trump.
And here to make the announcement, Times editor-in-chief, Sam Jacobs.
I'm super excited to be here. Please Please don't be mad when it's the person we had to pick.
Who is it going to be?
The person of the year who, for better or for worse, had the most influence on the news in 2024 is Donald Trump.
Okay, there it is. Donald Trump, 2024 Person of the Year.
So bummed.
That's the most unenthusiastic reveal I've ever seen. That's how I act when my sister gives me scented lotion for Christmas. Okay, there it is. Pomegranate Dream. Thank you. Now, obviously, Donald Trump is the person of the year. At this point, he's basically America's main character. So him winning is not surprising. What was surprising were the finalists.
These were the 5 finalists here in no particular order. Vice President Kamala Harris, the Princess of Wales, Elon Musk, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and President-elect Donald Trump.
Okay, look, no disrespect, but Kate Middleton was a finalist over Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the president of the United States. I mean, sure, Kate Middleton is the leader of Hamas, but still, it should be the sitting president as a finalist, but I guess once again, time has not been kind to Joe Biden.
I only played that last part to show you that Caitlin Clark did not even make the short list.
Okay. You got to check your sources.
Yeah.
Who is Kate Middleton?
She like Princess of Wales, I guess.
Okay.
Isn't that what he said?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
He said the leader of Hamas.
Do you want me to call my wife?
No, call your mother-in-law. Let's see what she has to say.
Let's not.
That dude's a pretty solid host.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
At least for that clip.
Yeah.
Did you notice that Daniel Penny, not to be confused with Daniel Perry, was acquitted?
Yes, I did see that. And the ensuing outrage on my heavily skewed left Twitter algorithm.
What do you think of that?
Jake, what do you think?
I think it means
asking him on what he thinks.
Well, it's
He's still thinking about the non-binary things. Like, Jesus Christ,
that guy fucking broke my brain.
It's open season in New York for assaulting people of color if you're white now. There you go.
Wow.
Cool.
You heard it here.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you see this this clip here of the white dude assaulting the Chinese dude on the subway in New York?
That's what I told you. It's open season.
I guess it's like gonna go somewhere else.
So basically this white dude on the subway just picks out this Asian dude and punches him after kind of threatening him for a while. And of course, the person that posted it, the takeaway is a white man screams at, threatens, and physically attacks an Asian man on a train, yet no one steps in to choke him out or instantly unalive him on the spot because of racism.
I'll punch you in the dick is a weird way to try to start a fight.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. That's the first thing he said.
And the guy's got his hands crossed around his lap there. It's like impossible. You're never going to get to his dick.
Yeah. That's why they always say in boxing, keep your hands down.
Nice.
So my takeaway from this is the reason that no one stepped in to protect this guy has nothing to do with the most boring talking point in the world, racism. It has a lot to do with, I think, first and foremost, the feminization of our society.
Oh, yeah. That describes the guy that was sitting between them that immediately gets up like, not going to deal with this.
Right? We've been fed estrogen in our food, our air, and our water. We've all turned into a bunch of pussies, present company excluded. And you look at a situation like this where back in the day when we all really felt like, America was a great place, someone steps in this situation and just says, sit the fuck down, like chill out,
or tries to de-escalate the situation, which is
right by saying sit the fuck down.
Yep.
No,
please.
Have you ever stepped in a situation like this?
I have.
Do you care to share the story?
Not really.
So I was on the bus one time in San Diego.
I am a de-escalate only in these situations,
which is obviously the smartest way to handle that. Right? No one. Going back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the pod, like getting in a fight is not optimal.
The last time I was on BART, which is basically the subway of San Francisco, and this guy had a full one of those large Costco-sized handles of Southern Comfort, and was just like slugging it down and then doing curls with it in between drinks. I was like, oh boy! And then he started mouthing off to some guy, and I just said like, hey, like, I just calmed the situation down,
right. Which is just, you're making your presence known. Like there's someone who cares what goes on here. You're not just going to get away with this. I'm not saying I'm going to do anything, but I care. And I want you to calm down, which for most crazy people is enough to go, okay.
Yeah.
But I was on the bus one time in San Diego. I was probably 23 years old. And me and my buddy were sitting in the back, and a bunch of high schoolers got on the bus. There's like a pack of them. Mm-hmm. And they started shooting spit wads into the head of this old lady.
Jesus.
On the bus from behind.
Yeah.
And like laughing about how they're stuck in her hair and whatnot. And I just couldn't sit there and let that happen. So I didn't, get in a fight with this like pack of wild animals, but we stepped in and said, hey, knock it off. And they more or less did. They kind of gave us it was a little tense.
Yeah.
But they calmed down. I think that what you're seeing also here is the effect of what happened to Daniel Penny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know what the consequences of stepping in. So you have a bunch of pussies on the train who are been feminized systematically.
Right.
And they know that anyone that steps in is risking going to prison. And so everyone just takes their hands off the wheel and says, well, let's just let it play out. If that guy gets beat up, then that's just the sick society that we live in.
Yeah.
Where someone can assault another person and no one's allowed to do anything. Call the cops so they can, show up at the next stop and maybe...
Or not show up at all.
If they show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all goes back to the podcast we did a long time ago about when you see that person at Home Depot or Safeway or whatever shitty blockchain, or shitty chain store that you're at, and they don't put the cart back, it's on you. Go put your fucking cart back. That's
have
where
you done that?
Yes, I have told people. Have you seen the guy on Instagram that goes around and
cart nart?
Yeah. He grabs the cart. He goes, you done with this? And she goes, oh, yeah. Through her window. He goes, great. And he just puts it behind her car.
Right.
And gets his car and drives off.
That's a good move.
Yes.
You think she puts it back or just takes it and shoves it right back into the spot that it was in?
I don't know. What kind of animal do you have to be to not put your cart back? It's like people that litter. It's like there's just something wrong with your brain.
Like you've just kind of given up on society.
Right.
You don't really care what your house looks like, your neighborhood, and that's probably a symptom of, not to take the blame off of that person for doing it, but when there's something in their brains that's been broken almost intentionally, I feel like. Mm-hmm. Like you've been told that
it's like a social conditioning.
It is.
Yeah.
Like everything in our society is out of your control. It's just bad. There's nothing you can do about it. You stepping in is not going to fix anything. You caring about what your neighborhood looks like is it's not your job. It's the job of the guy that puts the carts back. It's the job of the street sweeper to pick up the trash. Like, let's just take your agency away from you. And then there's, you have no responsibility anymore.
It's interesting because we're going to talk about this later about the religion as statism. And I think people willingly, whether knowingly or involuntarily releasing their own agency. And I think that's part of the social conditioning that comes with statism of there's this system that's going to take care of this stuff. I don't have to take personal responsibility for anything that I do. And I think that's where this kind of line of thinking comes from.
Okay, contrast that with Luigi Mangione, or however you say his name, stepping in and murdering that healthcare CEO.
And people fully celebrating it.
People being all about it.
Yeah. which is kind of interesting because if you look into what was the CEO's name, Brian Thompson, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. He grew up like lower middle class. I think he's from Iowa and became a CEO like one step at a time. You know, his dad didn't give him the job. He didn't
bootstraps.
Yeah. He wasn't, shoved into Harvard because his dad was an alumni or anything, worked his way up. And he was like essentially what we know of as like the American dream.
Self-made man.
Self-made man. Yeah. Right. And then we have, what's the shooter's name?
Luigi.
Yeah. Luigi was a rich kid. He went to one of the most expensive private schools.
Allegedly.
Right. I think in Baltimore or something like that.
Yeah.
And grew up in like fabulous wealth. And everyone is celebrating this guy who was born into incredible wealth and privilege and lived an entirely privileged life, right? His entire life.
Yeah.
That he is representing the downtrodden and the lesser off, which is it's like a complete inversion of reality. It's hilarious.
There's something about Americans that we do love an outlaw.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like a Jesse James, Billy the Kid, whatever Wyatt Earp, who was, basically a cold-blooded killer.
Right.
What is that? Like, is it the Robin Hood thing that we like that this guy is stealing from the rich and giving to the poor kind of a mentality?
It's why truly heinous criminals end up with like marriage proposals while they're on death row. It's the fascination with the anti-hero.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird, perverted, dark part of people's brains.
What do you think about the whole situation?
Which one?
The shooting of that guy.
Everything?
About the world, right, yes. As we stand today.
Things are looking pretty good. Christmas is coming up. I've been doing that on Twitter. The people that are in full TDS mode, I just drop a Merry Christmas in there to see how they react.
That's good, actually.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you.
How dare you?
You think the narrative around Luigi is legit?
And like that he was the shooter?
Yeah.
I think
it's suspect. It stood out to me. My initial reaction is that this guy just executed, no pun intended, one of the most high prolific crimes in the last however many years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they caught him in a McDonald's, 4 days later, wearing the same clothes, carrying the same gun, and he happened to have the written manifesto on him.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if all of those because those are the details that kind of I've seen shopped around, can't verify them for myself. But if that stuff's true, that's additional questions, right?
Right. For sure.
Totally.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot of fishy stuff about it. The fact that he
already the memes are going around with like close-ups of like the eyebrows and different pictures and like the Biden earlobe circuit that was going on for a while.
It is interesting. What do you think, though, about the idea, let's say it is all true, that this guy took the law into his own hands, had a beef with the CEO because he was denying, or, his company was denying claims.
It says, if this guy is who they are saying he is, financial hardship due to some healthcare costs was not a factor in his life.
But let's just say, I guess I'm asking you more about the principle of the thing, because it matters what happened to you. Like if I go and kill a child predator, for example, and he was legitimately guilty, most people would say, yeah, that was worthwhile.
Unless you were Kyle Rittenhouse, but yeah, go on.
Well, I mean, I don't think, yeah, exactly. There will always be pushback. But you and I,
people are making the connection to Kyle Rittenhouse to this guy. They're like, oh, it was okay in this situation. You know what I mean? I was like, I can't think of two diametrically opposed scenarios than these two things.
And they're talking about it was a ghost gun, which how do they know that already? That seems like, well, we're going after ghost guns. We'll just throw that into the mix. Like it's a ghost gun.
Cross state lines.
Yeah.
Gives a shit.
Totally. But my point is more about if he had a actual grievance that was legitimate, is he justified in killing this guy? So I kill a child predator that I learned about in Ohio. I'm less justified than the actual father of that child that was hurt by this person.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
That guy 100% deserves to kill the predator.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a point where we think this guy is justified if he was actually hurt by this dude or not. Or do we not? Do we think that like the rule of law is more important, that he needs to stand trial and go through all of the, you know, the system in order to be punished? In this specific case.
In this specific case?
Yeah, if he truly was harmed by this guy.
I haven't seen anyone saying that he was, but the way that I see it is this, is it's wrong. That's my take, kind of my umbrella statement. And if I was in the situation that I was grievously harmed by, and I chose to blame it on a CEO of a health company, I think that would be kind of misdirected rage. But at that point, like, I am not thinking rationally, and so I might do something like that. Definitely with like a child predator, for example. I was like, but that's not how we want to kind of run this society. So I think what he did was wrong.
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
You guys aren't hot. You guys aren't hot here. What the fuck is wrong with you people? Absolutely crazy. Front or back?
All right. Let's talk about conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Because we have brought this up on this podcast before, but I've become increasingly fascinated with people that will not entertain any kind of conversation that even comes close to the realm of what would be called a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm super interested in like the psychology behind that. You ever think about this?
Yes, all the time.
What are your thoughts on this? Because we know people, like, we've brought stuff up, like whatever, Tower 7, for example. And they just go like, nope. Not talking about it. I'm not even talking about this with you. Why do you think that is?
I think people feel a need to protect their team. And
what would that team be, though?
Team, in their minds, it's team legitimacy.
I think it's more, I've had this conversation with people who do I don't want to talk about this at all because they can't handle the prospect of the way they view the world being challenged.
Right,
exactly.
Right? So the way they wake up and get through the day is with an understanding there's just a lot of like underpinnings that exist that keep things to where they can get up and go through their day.
Yeah.
And if you start throwing up challenges to those underpinnings or like the narrative that those underpinnings seem to support, then they have to for a minute consider that everything is bullshit. And that's going to challenge their ability to get through the day.
It's the Matrix.
Yes,
they don't want to wake up to the Matrix, and they know that if a little crack starts to form, that the whole thing is. They don't know. I guarantee they wouldn't say this because they don't know it intellectually, but they somehow deep down know that it's all bullshit, and that if they have to wake up to this reality, that the slippery slope of reason is just going to wipe away everything that they know to be legitimate.
So you guys are in the wheelhouse of kind of where I am, of like what I think about these things. Because I always say it becomes like this intellectual like Gordian knot almost when you like push back, just like ask questions like, what about this? Like this turned out to not be true, and people, what do we call it? The Gelman's amnesia. They're just going, not doing it. And I think you kind of nailed it there, Jake, is that if you poke holes in this one thing, they will have to, if they are intellectually honest, to start asking themselves like, well, fucking maybe everything that I was told was true was complete bullshit, as Jake said it.
There's also been
you're undermining the foundation of the entire way that they view the world.
There's also been a concerted effort to demonize people like Alex Jones. And like, there's nothing in some people's minds, there's nobody more dangerous and a worse person than Alex Jones.
Right.
He's synonymous with the worst things that are out there. And they know that if they entertain one little kernel of a conspiracy theory, that they're going to end up in that same boat.
Because I started thinking about, like, well, what actually is a conspiracy theory, right? It's what it has become is this horrific pejorative, and it's a way for people to dismissively wipe away anything that counters the approved state-provided narrative, right? And the delivery mechanism for that narrative would be
the media.
The media, which works hand in hand with the state. And the whole thing we call
the cathedral.
The cathedral. And this goes all the way
nailing this quiz, by the way.
Yes. Much like my Spanish quiz earlier. And this can go all the way back to what? The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the Reichstag fire, World War II, Gulf of Tonkin, Vietnam. What? Project for New American Century. Saddam had WMDs.
Hold on.
Assad gassed his own people. Yes.
How is Archduke Ferdinand related?
War I.
Right. But are you calling that a conspiracy theory?
There are several conspiracy theories coming from that.
Okay.
That it was intentionally done to pull different countries into World War I.
Oh, interesting.
Much like the Reichstag fire.
Okay.
Yeah. When you look into any war that we've been in.
Well, yeah, I know that. I mean, I would have gone with the sinking of the Lusitania for World War I. I hadn't heard much about Ferdinand's murder being a conspiracy. I mean, it makes sense. I'm not doubting you.
Right.
Yeah, I just hadn't heard that.
Do not doubt me on this.
Why would I? I never would.
Can you pause that for a sec? Can we talk outside for a second? So
I have to adopt your narrative. Is that what you're saying? Yes. Without thinking about it?
But it goes all the way to like current day. You know what I mean? Like there's no inflation. Well, there's inflation, but it's transitory. Okay, there is inflation, but it's
Trump's fault.
It's a good thing. Yeah. Now there's inflation because it's Trump's fault. Now we're back to we just had the best economy in U.S. history. And people just go like, okay, which is mind blowing to me. And I always have these conversations with people when you look back and go like, okay, so like, remember 2 years ago you were saying this and now you're saying this, or you just claimed that we never had that conversation?
You know,
I find that odd.
It kind of falls into the category of what you were saying earlier about the Trump is Hitler people, the TDS people on Twitter. It's like, you're not even going to bother arguing.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the goal. With all that shit.
It's true.
Then you're like, I'm not even going to bother arguing with you. It's so deranged that I can't even break through. I'm not going to bother arguing.
There's like a metaphor in there somewhere. Like if you came home from work and peeked over your fence at your neighbor and he's on all fours eating dog shit in his backyard, you're not going to go like, hey, Jim, what are you doing? You're just going to go like, okay.
Totally.
Go back into the house. Like we're done. There's no conversation here.
It is that.
Yes. And you have to think about the term conspiracy theorist and like how it has been so carefully coordinated and manufactured and curated to become this like horrific pejorative.
Yeah, a term invented by the CIA.
Exactly. And so when you talk about someone like Alex Jones, it's like, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Like, oh, that's like the worst. That's one of the worst things. It's
right.
It's up there with being a racist or an anti-vaxxer,
right?
For example. And I think this is why your average, going back to what you're saying, Jake, is like your average NPC, if you were to bring up something like, what about Tower 7? Okay, no, done. I'm not having this. Is, as Jake, you were saying, like if they relinquish themselves to have the conversation with you, then they are slowly pulling out the underpinnings of that ideological foundation that for which they view the entire world, which would be a tough thing to do. It'd be like someone giving you proof that the God you believe in is not real. And when your religion is statism, that's what this is, which is how religion works.
Be like Jim Carrey finding out that he was on the Truman Show.
Yes. And going back to statism, as we have always talked about, is like the greatest trick that the predator class ever pulled, going all the way from our political elites to our central banks to our three-letter agencies, is them convincing us that we need them to survive in order for society to function. And when you become a quote-unquote conspiracy theorist, you're going against that dogma, that religion, which terrifies the shit out of people, right?
Yes.
It's like the world's largest philosophical Ponzi scheme, because it is a Ponzi scheme, right? How's a Ponzi scheme work? It's not built on anything real. And if everyone involved in that Ponzi scheme goes like, I want my money today, the whole thing falls apart, which happened to Bernie Madoff. Because if everyone woke up tomorrow and said, what? Said, you know what? Until you guys stop all these illegal wars, none of us are paying taxes. Every American said that. The whole thing would fall apart. Like day one. Because what are they going to do? Freeze every bank account in America?
They would never try something like that. Come on, dude.
What is this, Canada? What are they going to do? Put yellow tape across the parking lot of Yosemite? Yeah, like they did during the government shutdown? It's like, because if enough people woke up and said like, no, you guys got it fucking twisted. You guys are backwards. You're in public service. And now that we're having this conversation, why are you even getting a paycheck at all? Right?
Yeah.
If everyone said that, the whole thing would fucking fall apart.
Right.
Which would be a good thing.
Be like if everyone went to the bank and demanded their money immediately.
Yes. You want to get into fractional reserve currency? Do a deep dive?
Maybe next week.
So I know all this is like well-worn ground for us, but like if you go back to conspiracy theories, like let's look at some of the things that were told to us to be conspiracy theories only a few years ago, but now are turning out to be true.
Okay.
So January 6th. What was the narrative of January 6th?
Let's see. I'm going to quote some people that I am close and love. It was a violent insurrection, armed insurrection. Mm-hmm. A violent armed insurrection that tried to overthrow the government. When I pushed back and said there were no guns, this person said, well, they probably had guns in their trucks.
They all simultaneously forgot their guns and left them in their trucks. All right. Holds up so far.
No, trucks too, by the way, not cars.
Yeah,
we know who we're dealing with here.
We know who we're dealing with. We were told by the Parasite class that this was a violent insurrection, a deadly insurrection. And
yes, where 5 cops died.
Not so much, but we'll get there. And it was worse than the Civil War. And what did conspiracy theorists like us say about that?
Well, we said that it was not violent, that no cops died that day. In fact, the only person who died was a protester who was shot in the face.
By Capitol Police.
By the police.
Then got promoted.
Right. We also said that there were agent provocateurs in the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Which was a conspiracy theory.
Right. Like maybe, I don't know, Ray Epps comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
What else did we say?
That had all the markings of a Fed honeypot. Mm-hmm. Back to you were just getting there, for sure. And then the reason why this gets back to like the kind of the walk out the front door test is everything seemed to line up like a little too perfectly, right? So much like, okay, think about it like this. Biden comes out and says if Putin goes into this region of Ukraine, there will be no more Nord Stream pipeline. And then 2 weeks later, what happens?
They say, well, what do you mean there will be no more? Like, well, we have ways of dealing with that.
And so what happens 2 weeks later?
Putin blows up his own pipeline.
Putin blows up his own pipeline. You go like, okay, I at least got some questions here.
Right.
Which immediately makes you a conspiracy theorist. Because if you think about January 6th, you have Group X here, right? Which represents a very large part of the country, right? And these, I guess the kind of unifying narrative of this group is that we want to drain the swamp, which never happened. And we're sick of the overreach of government power. And it's basically a pushback against the state, right? And who would benefit most if we could take the most aggressive and vocal part of this group, assemble them all in one place, and then put on display for America the most draconian kind of punishments for them. 20 years for you, 30 years for you, 7 years for you, solitary confinement for you, no legal representation. Who would benefit the most from that scenario? Which is why we said, like, this looks like a giant Fed honeypot. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of these guys were agent provocateurs, like you're saying, and has like the fingerprints of like either CIA or most likely the FBI facilitating this entire day.
And you saw the recent
yes
admission that there were, I think, 26.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
what do they call them? FBI informants, basically.
Right.
Not.
Oh, no. Okay. We're going to talk about language.
Okay, good.
And what specific words are used, particularly when you're under oath.
Did you see Trump's recent interview? I want to say it was NBC.
Mm-mm.
And she asked him about January 6th and if he would pardon all the protesters.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, the guy is just trying so hard to get me on his side.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hold his feet to the fire, and he keeps coming up with these things. I'm like, God, that sounds good though. He said that he would pardon all of the January 6th protesters.
Really?
This was 3 days ago.
Is he going to pardon Ross Ulbricht? That's the big one on my list.
Yeah, I hope he does.
Yeah.
But he said that being kind of, shockingly reasonable, he said, well, we're going to look at it. If there are people who deserve to be locked up for committing crimes that day, then they will be. But the people that were just walking around in the Capitol, they will be pardoned. And then he goes, if there were, I don't know the exact language, but something like agent provocateurs, then we're going to look into that too. And he named Ray Epps as one of those people.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
I know.
By the way, here's a Liberty Tree public service announcement.
Hold on. Wait. Okay, go ahead. I got something to say too.
Okay.
I thought you were about to say Liberty Tree prediction.
No.
So this is totally off topic, but I got to throw this out there. But
go for it.
You go ahead.
No, you go.
We were promised.
No, you hang up first.
we were promised riots in the streets.
I'd be wearing my retainer. No, you hang up first.
We were promised riots in the street if Trump got elected.
Right.
And that never happened.
No.
Which
Thankfully,
yes. But it's I thought you guys were going to be I thought he was Hitler.
Yeah.
I thought all of this, and it looks like they're all just kind of oh, well, you got elected.
Yeah.
We made predictions that if Trump was elected, we'd see violence. And if Kamala was elected, I thought then we'd really see major violence.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump was elected and there was no violence or riots. Are these people, do they lack the courage of their convictions, or were they just not told by the media the way they were when George Floyd died that it's time to go riot? How come we aren't seeing the outrage that they purported to have?
I think it's a combination of the second thing you said, and a combination of that and people, all is fair in love and war. Elections are a war. They didn't truly believe no one believes that Trump is literally Hitler, quote, literally Hitler. If you go through my Twitter feed, no one believes that.
I guess it's on me for believing that they were really going to, riot. They were going to really be outraged. Turns out not that big a deal.
Back to my public service announcement.
Yes.
If you ever feel like protesting government overreach and some well-built guy in his late 20s wearing a mask and sunglasses and has a flat top and wearing military-issued body armor starts throwing suggestions your way, don't do that thing. Don't listen to that guy.
Sage advice.
Don't buy the sawed-off shotgun. Don't start making bombs in your parents' garage. Don't send money to the Taliban. Don't go into the building. Just wait it out for an hour or two. That guy's going to get back in the U-Haul with a bunch of other guys that look exactly like him that has no license plate on it for some reason. And you won't see those people again until the next protest you go to.
Did you see that Patriot Front, after Christopher Wray resigned?
No.
Patriot Front,
yeah. I just thought they're going to disband.
They also said they're going to disband. It's tell us your feds without telling us your feds. Come on. You couldn't wait 2 weeks?
That's hilarious.
I guess they didn't care. They're just all right, we're out. He's out, we're out.
All right.
This was making me nervous anyways. I'm fucking out of this business.
Pension's maxed out at this point anyway. So now we have to get into the limited hangout, which how do you guys understand that to be?
I understand that as being enough of the narrative that they don't want you, or so there's a narrative and enough proof comes out diametrically opposing that narrative that they say, okay, well, you're kind of right. Here's a little bit of information that It's so basically they unravel a part of the story. That's the limited hangout. It's because when I think about it, it's like they're hanging their ass out as being responsible for something in a limited fashion.
Right.
They're letting a little bit of air out of the balloon.
Correct.
So that it doesn't pop.
It's like giving the people that chose to believe their own eyes and ears just a little bit something to chew on.
So that when you come back and say, well, you guys lied about this thing. No, we admitted that in that report that we gave out about, I think you're going to get into this, but about COVID.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you guys did all this. Well, we admitted that we made mistakes. We were wrong. And then it's like, if you go one step further and say, well, the vaccine is killing people, they say, well, come on, we've already addressed this. We've already let the air out of the balloon. Let's just take the pressure down a little bit.
Yeah. Like just enough to like satisfy the people that are pushing back against the narrative.
Yeah.
So to go, you brought up the vaccine, saying like it's 100% effective. Well, it's like 77. It's like at least, definitely 50% effective. That's like 49. Well, it's like 17 as long as you take it every 2 weeks. And then the end is like, well, it's AIDS. So sorry, the 8 mice we tested it on, sorry, they didn't do anything. Now what we have to, important, like an integral component of the limited hangout, this is something we haven't talked about before, is the passage of time, to quote Cackles McNee Pads, or whatever the fuck she's called.
Well, I think that the concerns are based on what we should all be concerned about.
And the way that this works with the limited hangout is that the people controlling the narrative...
You just called her Cackles McKneecaps?
Yes. You just derailed me.
Sorry.
It's that funny. They know that the collective American consciousness essentially has the memory of a goldfish.
Mm-hmm.
Or they will be so distracted by the latest shiny thing being waved in front of them. So when you go back to like, did you just see this report that came out? They're like, no, we're paying attention to this. So this could be Taylor Swift attending the Super Bowl or drones hovering over New Jersey, which has apparently been happening all weekend. Speaking of shiny objects. You guys got any thoughts on those drones?
I'd love to hear your thoughts if you did, Jake.
I think the most common thing I've heard in reference to them is that it has something to do with Iran, which I think is absolutely incredible.
Well, they're known for their technological prowess in the world.
John McCain looking down like,
dude, once again,
we're going to get it.
The most reasonable man in the world, Donald Trump, had the best comment about that. He said, if the government truly does not know anything about these drones, we should shoot them down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, right?
Right.
And then, what's the guy's name? Kirby?
John Kirby.
John Kirby comes out and says, these drones aren't a thing. We looked into it. It looks like they're actually manned aircraft.
Oh, okay. That's a load off.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Like, well, what the fuck are they doing? You still don't know anything about them. If this is a real thing, like, what a reasonable answer. Like, well, let's just shoot them down. If they're not supposed to be there and the government truly doesn't know what they are, just fucking shoot them down. Woo! Notice they're not hovering over like rural areas where people would shoot them down.
Chinese spy balloon
West
2,
Virginia.
electric boogaloo.
Exactly.
So go back to January 6th. Like, I'm going to play a clip. Here's the first clip is from July of 2023, and the second one's from November of 2023. This is FBI Director Christopher Wray testifying under oath about his knowledge of any employees of the FBI being involved in January 6th, right? So here's the first one.
Those who were there in an undercover capacity on January 6th, how many were there?
Again, I'm not sure that I can give you that number as I sit here. I'm not sure there were undercover agents on scene.
I thought I heard you say you didn't know whether there were FBI agents or informants or human sources in the Capitol or in vicinity on January 6th. Did I misunderstand you? I thought that's what you said.
Well, I referred very specifically to undercover agents.
Yeah. And so are you acknowledging then there were undercover agents?
As I sit here right now, I do not believe there were undercover agents on scene.
Emphasizing undercover agents.
That's from July.
Did you have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol on January the 6th prior to the doors being open?
Again, I had to be very careful.
It should be a no. Can you not tell the American people? No. We did not have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters positioned inside the Capitol.
Gentleman's time has expired.
You should not read anything into my decision not to share information.
Director Ray,
confidential.
Gentleman's time.
Okay. Kelly.
Matt.
You're under Liberty Tree oath right now.
Okay.
This computer sitting in front of you on the hard drive. Is there any gay porn downloaded on this hard drive?
No.
See how easy that was? Pretty simple. It's not a hard question.
There's no gay porn downloaded.
And we can move on to talking about other things now. It wasn't that easy. So now to go back to the importance of the passage of time is the Justice Department just released its investigation into January 6th. And it was unveiled that the FBI had 26 confidential human sources at the Capitol that day. 4 that actually entered the Capitol and 13 which entered the restricted area around the Capitol. That's according to their own Inspector General, right?
Now, and it could be that what they were actually saying was a minimum,
right,
of that many.
At least that we know of.
Yeah.
And a confidential human source is what they're calling them.
Right.
What Christopher Wray called them under oath. It's a guy paid,
what is a confidential human source?
Paid by the FBI to become an informant or maybe motivate an already riled up protester to throw some suggestions his way of how we can kind of take this thing up a notch, right? And this ties back to our episode about private military contractors. So Joe Biden or Kamala Harris can say with a straight face, we have no boots on the ground in Ukraine.
They're wearing tennis shoes.
Yes. And this is why I'm going to go through some headlines. So when you go through the headlines, I'm just going to scroll through these. PBS, no undercover FBI agents at January 6th riot. PolitiFact, the FBI didn't orchestrate January 6th. Politico, FBI didn't deploy undercover agents on January 6th. PolitiFact, new evidence further disproves FBI January 6th conspiracy theory. The Hill, no FBI undercovers at Capitol on January 6th, and on and on and on. The first 40 results you will see, the headlines, which is typically only what people read and then fucking vomit on Twitter, right, without doing any research. They'll say like, well, they did an investigation. There were no FBI employees around the Capitol on January 6th.
I don't even think they would say that. There were no FBI agents.
So,
because confidential human sources are being employed by the FBI.
So, fact check. True.
Right.
There were no FBI employees.
Agents.
Yeah, there were FBI employees. See how this works?
I do.
We have no boots on the ground in Ukraine. The boots you are seeing belong to Blackwater, which is a private military contracting firm, right?
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks ago, the vaccine is administered to stop the spread of a pathogen, but now it's helps in the aid in the effort to stop the spread of a pathogen. It's an entirely different thing, right? They got the Big Mac. We got the Big Nick. They got the golden arches.
We have the golden arch.
We have the golden arts. Anyone have any questions? No. Good. Got it. I'm going to wander off into the jungle, and KJP will give you any other details that you might need. Eat a dick, America. Want to keep going?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. Talk about more limited hangouts. On December 2nd, so last week, the Congressional Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic issued its final report, which has been 2 years in the making. This was headed by Chairman Brad Wenstrup and Ranking Member Paul Ruiz. If you want to read this report, it's 520 pages long. It's on oversight.house.gov. So this is from the source, right? And I broke it down into excerpts because we're going to do... Think about each of these things, going back to conspiracy theories, and what would be considered a conspiracy theory 4 years ago and would have gotten you deplatformed, kicked off YouTube, kicked off Facebook, demonetized, the whole deal, right? Start with origin. What was the conspiracy theory?
That it came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
That was not only a conspiracy theory, but would make you a horrific racist.
Right.
And this is what the report found. COVID-19 most likely emerged from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. The 5 strongest arguments in favor of the lab leak theory include the virus possesses a biological characteristic that is found in nature. Data shows that, this is what the report says. What's the next one? Gain of function. What was the conspiracy there?
That Anthony Fauci funded gain of function research in the Wuhan lab.
A lab, just quoting the report, gain of function research, a lab-related incident involving gain of function research is most likely the origin of COVID-19. This would come from a separate section on EcoHealth Alliance, which was run by Peter Daszak and Anthony Fauci. Lockdowns. What was the conspiracy theory? What went against the narrative, I guess I would say.
I guess just that lockdowns would not help in deterring the spread of COVID and would be way more harmful than they would be helpful.
From the report, prolonged lockdowns cause immeasurable harm not only the American economy, but also to the mental and physical health of Americans, with a particularly negative effect on younger citizens. Mask mandates. What was the narrative? What was the counter narrative?
The conspiracy was that masks didn't do a damn thing to stop the spread of COVID.
From the report, there was no conclusive evidence that masks effectively protected Americans from COVID-19. Public health officials flip-flopped on the efficacy of masks without providing Americans scientific data. They concentrate this on New York and Andrew Cuomo and him moving patients into... They're saying basically that the report states that Andrew Cuomo is guilty of medical malpractice and guilty for the deaths of quite a few elderly people when he shoved them all into nursing homes. COVID-19 misinformation. This is a big one. What was the narrative about misinformation?
The narrative was that misinformation was rampant and harmful. Well, I don't know. What are you trying to get me to say? You tell me what the narrative was.
Non-binary is not a thing in Spanish. From the report, the Biden administration even employed undemocratic and likely unconstitutional methods, including pressuring social media companies to censor certain COVID-19 content to fight what it deemed misinformation. This would be almost every podcast that we listen to. Mm-hmm. They were all kicked off YouTube, for example. Mm-hmm. Vaccine mandates.
The conspiracy theory was that it was unconstitutional and that, that was struck down right away by the Supreme Court, right? What does the report say?
Not after millions of people lost their jobs because they didn't take the
Right, not right away. Not soon enough for a lot of people. A lot of people took the vaccine so they wouldn't lose their jobs and regretted doing it.
Which is how many of these things work. We just like starting a war. Just
totally
get it going.
Just like
Supreme Court strikes it down there.
Gun control in California.
It's like a pharmaceutical company like Vioxx going like, we're going to get fined $8.5 billion for this, for all these deaths that we cause. I was like, but we're going to make $24 billion. So roll it out and we'll deal with it in a couple of years, which actually happened. Vaccine
mandates. Not that you could sue them.
Vaccine mandates were not supported by science and caused more harm than good. The Biden administration coerced healthy Americans into compliance with COVID-19 vaccine mandates that trampled individual freedoms, harmed military readiness, and disregarded medical freedom to force a novel vaccine on millions of Americans without sufficient evidence to support their policy decisions. You can go down this list. We won't go through the whole thing. Natural immunity, vaccine injury, the VAERS system, vaccine injury compensation.
What does it say about natural immunity in the VAERS system?
Public health officials engaged in a coordinated effort to ignore natural immunity, which is acquired through previous COVID-19 infection when developing vaccine guidance and mandates.
And the VAERS?
Vaccine injury reporting systems created confusion, failed to properly inform the American public about vaccine injuries, and deteriorated public trust in vaccine safety during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So they're saying that it actually harmed the ability of advocating for vaccines.
Mm-hmm. So I know most of this, to go back to the limited hangout, because what's not in this report is like excess death mortality, skyrocketing turbo cancers, myocarditis, pericarditis, all the strokes in young people. It's like here we are 4 years later, 2024, of the slow drip, drip, drip of all the things that we were saying, and many of the people that we knew were saying 4 or 5 years ago. And here we are, we're getting just that little bit of nugget to chew on. And for the people that want to say, you're always pushing it back against like the state, the cathedral. I was like, yeah, but so why would you source your information from them? I was like, because this is what we were saying 4 or 5 years ago. And you guys were saying what? Follow the science, trust the experts. These were your experts that you were quoting 4 years ago. And here they are coming out. This is the granddaddy of them all, the U.S. government, saying like, here's our report, here's our findings. Nothing on this on mainstream media. And I'm using your source to show you that you had 4 straight years of fucking diarrhea of the mouth and to listen to your nonsense about vaccines and lockdowns and masks and all this other fucking bullshit.
Get in fights with people at the grocery store, lose friends over this because they swore that this was right and that I was wrong. And yeah, thank you.
There we go.
Hedman and I were talking about this yesterday, that this to me seems like the ultimate limited hangout, because the one thing that's conspicuously absent from this report is the harm that the vaccine did. And I think that the vaccine is the biggest deal in all this. Yes, the lockdowns were horrible. They ruined people's lives. All of the
school shutdowns, masks, social distancing,
all of that stuff was
social distancing is in here. It's like even Anthony Fauci has come out and said like, it's just something that kind of appeared. It seemed like good optics at the time. Yeah. Who just got preemptively pardoned, or is on the list to be preemptively pardoned by Biden.
Yeah,
and you go like, for what?
Right.
Like, well, I'm not saying he did anything, but in case he did,
because Trump's such a maniac, he's going to attack his political opponents. God forbid. God forbid.
And Trump also kept him in his position, by the way.
Right. So as bad as all those things are, I think the vaccine is worse,
without a doubt.
And this gives them a little bit of cover. When you go like, well, wait a second, what about the vaccine? Like, well, we addressed all that. We made mistakes. The government came out and said that all those things are wrong. It's like, no, you didn't.
Donald Rumsfeld, mistakes were made.
Exactly. You didn't address the thing that was a biological weapon unleashed on the human population. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that I care most about. All of the assault on liberty obviously is horrible, and the dry run that you took to see how far you could push Americans and people in the rest of the world was horrible. It was like the biggest draconian measure that the globe has ever seen. But the vaccine is still worse, because you were injecting people with something that's killing them. And this limited hangout gives them the cover to say, well, we've addressed that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Is that where?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. That was the point of bringing up the limited hangout and all this. I was like, well, they're giving us just a little bit, but like the big things, the things that now that us conspiracy theorists, using my finger quotes there, are talking about is completely omitted from this report. And you also have to give a shout out for the people that resisted this early on, sometimes even people from day one. You withstood probably the largest coordinated propaganda psyop campaign in world history.
Dude, so Hedman, tell Matt what we were talking about yesterday. He brought up this point about people in Mexico and the fear that all of us were subject to.
Yeah.
And the people that you were friends with who, acted tough and whatever, but when this thing rolled out, turned out not to be.
Yes. It surprised me, that all these friends that I have that in they act so tough with other things, like so macho things. And when the COVID comes, they were all scared. And I was surprised of how many of them were just, how you say, to follow orders or believe in everything the media says. And nobody
people
questioned.
that talked like really tough, like surfers, like macho guys that were just like, I'll fight or do this, whatever. Like I don't listen to the government or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like these guys like doing drugs and alcohol and getting to the fights, and we are very tough.
Right.
And with the COVID, we're like, no, stay at home, stay safe. And I was like, oh, well.
So,
but he didn't. He was like, no, fuck this. Like, this is all bullshit right away. I was like, dude, that's why we're like aligned. We have that same mentality
that's what I love about, Herman, you come in here, or like reading Ryan, the Muay Thai coach, in a completely different part of the world, came to the same conclusions that we did in a totally different spot. None of us talked, and none of us corresponded with each other. Us here that do see each other every day, we never sat down and had a meeting. Like, where are we on this? Like, we just intuitively knew what we were seeing with our own eyes and ears, and like where we were going to land on the situation.
We intuitively knew what was coming out in this report on December 2nd.
Yeah,
was right. Right. And guess what? We were fucking right.
What are you saying, Jack?
Well, 2016, 2017, whatever, I got a knock on my door in the middle of the night, and it was my neighbor saying, hey, they're evacuating the neighborhood because of fire. And
2017.
I'm like, what? And I open my door and have this really brief conversation with them, and I walk out my door a couple steps, and I look into the hills, and they're burning, right? So I'm like, okay, let me consult the box and the speaker, or whatever, the voice on the television or telephone or whatever, to get some additional information, because there's something happening. I can verify this. The whole COVID thing, it was all the voice and the man on the screen, but there was literally zero tangible anything happening. Seemed like things were going the opposite direction, right? We've had millions of conversations about how the homeless population, who is probably the most at risk of all populations for a number of reasons, seemed to be flourishing and thriving, and they were having a party, and we joined them for like a whole year.
Totally.
But like, there was no, so the people that take what they hear on a speaker and immediately turn that into something, it gets graduated from something they've heard about to something they know is true, without the filter of critical thinking in between there to catch that stuff and at least give them pause to consider it. Those are the ones that are, throw a mask on, get a bunch of shots. But this is that walk out the front door, sniff test thing. It never.
I had an almost identical experience. Someone knocking on my door and like, Santa Rosa's on fire. You got to get out of here. And I was like, what?
There's an invisible virus in the air.
No, this was during the fires in 2017. So I got I had this rental car at the time because my truck was in the shop, and I jumped in the car and drove around Santa Rosa, walked out my front door, literally did that test.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'm fine. I went back in, went to sleep.
Yeah.
Woke up in the morning and Santa Rosa had burned, but my walking out the front door and looking was right. Like, I was like, okay, I think I'm fine where I live right here.
Also, before we go, shout out to loyal listener Doug, who thought that Herman was Jake the entire time, faking a Mexican accent.
Oh, we should have thought of that.
Yeah.